You mentioned a couple of times that going back to the Constitution would be a good way to protect our individual rights. I'm wondering, considering the fact that the Constitution has pretty much completely failed at doing that to this point, how do you see that in the future that it would protect our individual rights?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. First of all, I don't think there's any way we can go back to the Constitution just by saying we're going to go back to the Constitution. You need to create, because it has failed, you need to create the philosophical foundation on which that Constitution can rest, which unfortunately the Founding Fathers couldn't and didn't do. That is, you need this new ethic of rational self-interest. You need this recognition of reason as one's tool of survival, as the way in which we pursue our self-interest. And if we can win that philosophical battle, then one, we can resurrect the Constitution, and then we can ultimately improve it. And you can improve the Constitution. It needs improving. There's certain things in it that are wrong and that need to be taken out, and certain new things are going to be put in. And I think that I would, if you go to, there's a website that we have, principlesforafreesociety.com, which articulates a lot of this, but I would center the fixed Constitution on 4 separations. The separation of state and church, which I think we need to continue and actually have for a change. A separation of state from economics. That is, the state should have no opinion about economics. It should be pro-capitalist, it should be pro-socialist, it should be pro-anything. It should just leave people free. That's it. So it should have no economic position. You want to be a communist under freedom? Find a few other people who want to be communists with you and go and start your own commune somewhere. The state should have no say in that as long as your force is not being used for anything. Separation of school, of education and state, and separation of science and state. And I think those need to be in a Constitution, and they need to be explicit, because those areas have clearly failed, particularly education failed very early on, science failed quite quickly after that, and economics has been a disaster. So we need to have clear separations, and then everything that implies, and that should be in a revised Constitution. But I particularly like the Declaration of Independence. I think that is the real founding document of this country, and I think philosophically and politically, that is the most important document. The notion of individual rights, that's where it's articulated. And yes, there's a creative stuff in there, but that's minor. That's minor relative to the achievement of what's in that document. And just a list of sins of the king is fabulous. Because if you think about the list of sins of the kings, our government commits far greater sins than anything the king did back then. All of those have been violated, and in that sense, we do have a right to rebel. If only we can win, maybe we should. We can't win.
So basically what you're saying is we need to elect people that have the right philosophical background? Or?
Yeah, we need to elect people that have the right ideas. The Constitution will take care of itself at this point. At this point, the Constitution is irrelevant. Nobody pays attention to it anyway. I mean, the Supreme Court once in a while pretends to refer to it, and it's still a bastion of some, straightening out of the government. But they have no clue what it actually says, and they don't really understand it, and they don't really refer to it. They refer to it when it's convenient, when it suits their ideas. They refer to the Constitution. When it doesn't suit their ideas, they refer to something else. It's unfortunately, tragically become a fairly irrelevant document in the world today. Which doesn't mean we shouldn't resurrect it, and fight for it, because it is the best that's ever been produced, and it's certainly better than the system we have today. But with the idea of fixing it, because it needs to be fixed.